Hi, I have another tip for you for quilting the Kaye Wood way. Do you know about the infamous Y seam? Let's take a look at this block here. This is a Y seam because it looks like a Y, and it's used in a lot of quilting patterns, and quilters sort of groan when they mention a Y seam because it seems to cause them problems, but I have eliminated all those problems for you. And I was so happy when I discovered this technique. First of all, we're going to sew, and I've already done it, these two diamonds together because we have 3 diamonds to form our Y seam. So I want to sew these 2 diamonds together, and here's one of the tricks. You want to sew all the way to what becomes the inside point. In a lot of quilt patterns, in traditional techniques, they tell you to leave open 1/4 inch from one edge or the other. That is never the easy way to do it. So whenever you have a pattern that tells you to do that, rethink it. So we're going to sew all the way to the inside. The next tip is you want to press the seam allowance between these 2 pieces open. So 2 tips, sew all the way into the inside, press the seam allowance open. Now we're going to insert this 3rd diamond. And which side do we sew it on? We have to have a guide. If I were to put it down this way and start sewing, I don't know where to stop. I have no guide. Well, with my techniques, you always have a guide. So if we put it on this side and turn it over ready to sew, we have a guide, and that's our seam line. And I usually don't pin these, but I want to pin it just so you can see exactly how I'm lining up this underneath diamond with the one on top. I'm going to put the pin in right in the seam line between these 2. And it goes through to the back diamond and back out, again in the seam line. And I want to turn it over to check it. We should have exactly 1/4 inch beyond the pin. And it looks to me like I have a little bit more, and that's because I've slipped a little bit here. See this? If this were lined up at this end, then the pin would do its job. And we'll put it back in here on the seam line and back through, and you should be able to eyeball 1/4 inch. That tells me right here I have 1/4 inch left extended beyond the pin. Now I'm ready to start sewing. I have a 1/4 inch foot on my sewing machine. I want to set my machine so it'll stop with the needle down in, and we'll just start stitching. Remember I said we had a guide, which is our seam. That's what we're aiming for. I want to take the pin out right before we get to it, but I want to stop with my needle down in the center of the seam. Even if you have to maneuver a little bit, it should be right in the center of the seam. And then with the needle still down in the fabric, if I fold this piece up and bring the 2 edges that are not sewn yet together, and just smooth this out so there's no bulk. You can feel it. It will lay flat, and you can feel it when it's flat, and then we just continue sewing. We'll just bring it over. Now we want to press the seam allowance, and we want to press the seam allowance away from the brown. So I'll just press from this side, from the right side, press the seam allowance down, and as you can see, we have a perfect Y seam. And so try that. Just make a sample, try it, and it will simplify a lot of your piecing techniques. Be sure and join me when I bring you another tip on quilting the Kaye Wood way.